Well, here we are with again with the old boat frame that we built as a performance art piece, so to speak, to encourage people to maybe just pick up a piece of wood and tool and do things for themselves. Um, but it had been sitting around the side of the house for, I don't know, 3 years or so, and the wood's twisted a little bit. So I brought it inside. I've put it up on blocks, as you can see, because it's upside down right now. So looking at it, and if you're a wooden boat builder, you're familiar with this, of looking at the line, the curve from every conceivable angle you can get your head at, looking for either a flat spot or a hard spot. And what we've got there is a hard spot, a crest, as it were, the peak of the curve, right where the block is. That's the high point, and the boat, as I said earlier, is hogged, which means the bow and the stern, instead of arcing up, are arcing down, and that's exactly what we cannot have. We do not want that. So I've put it up on blocks for a few days, just to see, with some weights at the back, just to see if I could coax to correct that hogging, coax the curve back out of it, but doesn't seem to be working. Now, the other thing too is that I don't need another two-hand boat, two-hand meaning four-oared boat. Our club does, however, need a four-hand boat, which is 8 oars, because we're getting more and more people interested in rowing. And with our existing boat, which only has 6 oars, it's a question of drawing straws or hurt feelings when someone get left on the shore. So what the idea that's starting to occur to me is, because looking at it, I mean, there's a little bit of asymmetricity there, left and right too, which you may or may not be able to see in the screen, but I can certainly see with my eye. And I should say that's another complication here, because the shop isn't quite big enough. If a place is big enough to store a boat, it's really not big enough to build a boat, because you need to be able to get back from a distance and look at it, right? So normally when I build a boat, it's out here in the yard. And as often as not, I'll be up on the porch there, or up on that higher balcony looking down on it, just because you got to look at it from every angle. And as I've said elsewhere, you're not really using the math or the numbers. You bend the piece of wood until it looks right. And if you look at it from every angle and you can't see a hard spot or a flat spot, then that's where it should be. The numbers are there, but they're immaterial, and that drives a certain type of engineering mentality out of their heads. And I have to admit, I kind of enjoy doing that. But so what I'm starting to think is lengthening this boat. There's too much good wood here to get to toss away. I mean, these are lovely clear thwarts. They're a little more heavily constructed than usual. But again, I was making a point about building an entirely serviceable boat, entirely adequate boat, using nothing but construction grade materials. And I'm going to continue to do that. And for an interesting comparison, we look up at the other boat, which is temporarily on hold while the state of emergency settles down a little bit, and we're waiting for inoculations and such like that. This is one that I've been working on off and on for a couple of years now, about 3 years now, with a friend of mine who's an enormously talented engineer and scientist. Applied physics is his thing, and he's a brilliant fellow. But the interesting thing, the fun thing, the challenging thing for both of us to work together is we're so fundamentally different in our boat building approach. He's we're both perfectionists, but we're perfectionists in a different way. He's used to working with metals and things that behave predictably and reliably. I, on the other hand, am much more of, shall we say, the organic process, where I bend it and it looks right and I go with that. And the net result is the same, but it's been a good education for the pair of us, learning to work with each other in our very different approaches to the problem. So I think I'm going to do, this boat needs to be lengthened by a full 10 feet to get a forehand Curach. Now, again, the shop simply isn't long enough. In fact, my backyard isn't quite long enough either. So what I believe I'm going to do is make my notes about what, take a bunch of pictures, make some notes and such like that, disassemble this and pack it away. Because in the meantime, while his boat's up in the rafters, I need to be making a couple of garden gates and to replace the wainscoting in my quilt making shop. So I need the space for that. So yeah, I think I'm going to carry on with this because, again, there's so much material here that's too good to waste. And some of it was gifted to us by Dunbar Lumber for the project. So big shout out to them. Thank you, Zane. And also because these were historically and prehistorically, these were the boats of the poor. They, unlike this yacht finish, beautiful boat where there's not a knot in it and everything's lovely, clear, edge grain Douglas fir of a sort that I never thought I'd see or work with again in my life. This is construction grade stuff. Some of it is literally obtained through beach combing, and some of it is obtained through polite conversations with site managers at construction projects, if getting permission to go through their waste pile and pull out a 2x4 or something that they've cast aside. So this boat's built with scrounged materials, and that is very much in the keeping, in the tradition of these boats, and which to me makes it a little more. It adds to its appeal and its specialness. Now, I build, because there's another backstory, and I'll include the link to my builder's journal, which is on a Facebook page, a Facebook photo album. I'll include that in the links about how I came to be doing all of this. So I'm building boats in the traditional manner, or at least I'm grounded in the traditional manner, but I've been experimenting, and because I've been always fascinated with things about why this building style and this construction style evolved, and what I was fascinated and remain fascinated by what styles and procedures persisted because they were actually the best possible way to do things, and what perhaps persisted because they were simply too poor to do it any other way, or innate stubbornness and peasant conservatism, whatever you want to call it. But I've been so impressed as I've been building these boats. I think this is it's going to be my 7th or 8th. I think this is my 6th. I've lost count of how many boats of these I've built. Having built them strictly traditionally, to traditional methods, including iron, using the boat iron nails and scavenged wood and driftwood and such like that. And then starting to play with the limits of the design, which my current boat, which is the one we take rowing all the time, I've really, really pushed the limits of the design on that one. It's all as a learning experience, which is why that other boat is called Louvain-Chèvre, which translates as learning curve. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to make my make my measurements, make some notes, detailed notes, put them aside, disassemble this and put it aside, and then start planning a bigger boat, the Curach, the big boat, which will be about, this one's 17'5". This next boat, using as much of this as possible. I'm certainly be able to reuse the transom pieces. I may cut them a little more elegantly. Keep the thwarts, keep the knees, 2 more of each for a total of 4 thwarts. Keep the bow section. I'm not sure if I'll be able to reuse these gunnels because of their twist, but we'll see what we can do with that. And we'll carry on from there. Okay, now I've been out here doing this because it's just simply, I'm playing hooky. It's just too nice outside to be sitting in my basement shop making quilts, but my conscience is tugging me back in that direction. So I'm going to wrap up what I'm doing here and then get back to work. Cheers.